Let's get into AEW Dynamite. Not a very good show, but then again, when is it ever? We're going to talk about the Shane McMahon picture. We're going to talk about Sammy Guevara popping up on Ring of Honor. And then we're going to get into the show, and everything else we'll just dump into there, such as Coach going off on Mercedes again. And this night proved him right once again. But first, the picture. There was a picture on the internet floating around from Wrestle Talk of Tony Khan looking very shaggy, like he hadn't been to sleep in this month. And, well, you're hearing this on the 1st. What I mean is he probably hasn't slept since June. And right off, just into the shot is Shane McMahon. The two of them seem to be having a conversation. It's very suspicious. Somebody was standing in the corner and snapped the picture. This seems to add a little bit of credence to the story we talked about a couple of weeks ago, in which Jim Ross talked about Shane McMahon coming into AEW. The internet exploded as people discussed what Shane McMahon could do in AEW. Would he work in the office? Would he wrestle? What could he do? The AEW fans are livid. They're not excited by this, by the way. There's a lot of AEW fans who are legitimately angry. I will attempt to simplify their thoughts. But the picture is very strange. It's a very strange picture. I understand why people look at it and say, what is going on here? What's happening? We don't know where they are, clearly. We don't know if this is the only time they've talked. We don't know what they're talking about. We don't know if Shane is in Tony Khan's office, if Tony Khan's in Shane's office. We don't know what's going on. But there's a bunch of ideas floating about. One idea is that Shane's going to come in as a wrestler. Shane is in his 50s. I don't think so. Last time he wrestled, he blew out like all of his hamstrings and ACLs and MCLs or whatever. The next is that he might be brought in for some kind of office position. I think that is probably, if something was going to occur between the two parties, that would be the most likely. That Shane McMahon, with all his experience wrestling and some creative ideas that he's had, and he ain't never been the best when it comes to creative, but he's got some creative ideas, and he's never been able to really get them on screen during his time in the WWE, because either Vince was there blocking him, or Stephanie was there blocking him, or Triple H was there blocking him. Like, there was always somebody playing goalie when it came time for Shane's ideas. And then if Shane did have an idea and it went sour, we very quickly found out it was a Shane McMahon idea. So that would be the best option if something was going to happen between the two parties. It would be more likely some kind of backstage role for Shane McMahon. The third option, of course, is that he's going to buy the company or something like that. And I don't see that happening. I don't think Tony Khan is going to give up this company for anything in the world. It's his dream, you know? And he's still a young man. If Tony Khan was like 80 or something, maybe we'd be talking about selling it, but he's barely 40. He might be like in his early 40s. He's only lived this dream for a few years. He's got hundreds of millions of dollars remaining. He's not going to sell out right now. You know, and I don't think Shane McMahon will be able to cough up enough money to get this guy to sell his dream. But this is certainly more than I thought it would be. And I have to admit, I'm pretty sure, I don't remember what my thoughts were on this subject. I don't remember what I thought about Shane McMahon and Tony Khan working together, even though I'm pretty sure I've been consistent with the idea that Shane McMahon should not be wrestling in his 50s. Making a special appearance, sure. Doing something in the office, maybe. But I don't think Shane needs the money. I think that, well, for a lot of people, let's talk about this. For a lot of people, they would be saying, like, is this a betrayal of WWE? Well, his family doesn't own it anymore. You know, Triple H is mostly a figurehead. He works in creative. But the company is owned by endeavor, and they merged with the UFC. It's not his father's company anymore. So does he still have some kind of loyalty to the company? Not really. I mean, sure, you would say, why would you want to run competition to your brother-in-law? Why would you, and your sister is still there? But we don't know what kind of relationship the McMahons have. It's been contentious for a while as far as we know. I would think Shane would not do it without running it by other members of the family first. Because, he could go rogue, I guess. He's a grown man. But it's an interesting idea to think that Shane is going to run competition to Triple H and the WWE. That would be extremely weird. That would be probably the biggest wrestling story outside of Vince McMahon being ousted. Would be Shane McMahon going over and becoming a loyalist for the competition. Now, because of that, a lot of AEW fans are saying, we specifically want AEW to not be WWE. We specifically want no McMahons involved in AEW. This is supposed to be the wrestling for the wrestling fans, not another McMahon project. And some fans are saying, look, if you bring Shane in, whether it's as a wrestler, whether it's in the backstage position as creative or helping to produce or whatever, then you're killing the identity of AEW. And I understand that fear. At the same time, though, this could be something that could be used for growth. And if Shane can bring something to the company that can help it grow, then it's good. You should want AEW to grow. As long as the ultimate decision making is left to Tony, then it's still going to be Tony's ideas. As long as the elite still have autonomy, then you're still going to get your elite. So what typically ends up happening is the same thing that almost always happens, is that Shane McMahon starts messing with guys on the periphery because he can't really fiddle around with the elite too much, and he can't fiddle around with anybody Tony wants to move. And so he's in the same position as all the other writers and producers and agents or whatever, is trying to get a crew of guys that he wants to get pushed in the company, or storylines that he wants to happen that don't involve guys who are pretty much either autonomous or under the umbrella of Tony Khan, which is the exact same situation CM Punk was in. Punk had to have his own crew. Khan had his crew, and then the elite had their crew. And this was the same thing that happened when Cody was there, because they talk about the Codyverse. So you look at it from that perspective, it's not really changing much, except there's another voice in the show. I don't know whether that could be good or bad. Again, we haven't seen Shane do anything on his own in order to say this would be a terrible idea. We also haven't seen Shane do anything to let us know this is a good idea, But the fear by the AEW fans that this is going to make them lose their identity is not completely unfounded. Now, personally, do I like it? No. I don't think it's a good idea for Shane McMahon to be involved with AEW. And that's just because of the McMahon issue. You got Vince's thing is not even over yet. I think that whole thing needs to be cleared up. You shouldn't want anybody who's going to be that might potentially end up being called as a witness, somebody whose phone might end up being tapped, or records being pulled or something like that. We don't know how much Shane knew, or what Shane could have known, or whether Shane was around. We have no idea. For that alone, I would not want Shane around, because you don't want AEW to get pulled into this until it's over. If this was over and we were done with this and then Shane was like, he had walked away scot-free from it, okay, fine. But then you're in the same situation that WWE is in. Because everybody keeps asking the question, did Stephanie know? Did Triple H know? Did Nick Khan know? What's going to happen in Discovery? We're going to end up pulling all of these people's cell phone records. And, we're going to start chasing them around with, their GPSs and all this kind of stuff. Or we're going to look into the laptops and see what kind of emails they were sending. You never know what can come out of these lawsuits if they get to Discovery. So I think you should be very, very careful in dealing with somebody who has a family member involved with that, let alone his very famous father. I'm also against it for the idea that I don't think it's a good idea for Shane to go against the company. I think that would very much split the fan base. Look, the fan base is already split, but he has the best reputation of the McMahons. Him and Linda, they have the best reputations. And Linda was involved with Donald Trump, and a lot of people don't really like Linda for that reason. Or some people just kind of like, oh, she's an old lady, she wants to be in politics, whatever. She left the wrestling business to do it. But for Shane to say, well, I'm still going to be in the wrestling business, I'm just going to compete with the company my dad, turned into a juggernaut. I can see a lot of people souring on Shane for that reason. Saying, because people get weirdly, not just tribal, but possessive over these ideas. And you don't need WWE fans like, but Shane, you're supposed to be on our side. And he shouldn't need that at his age. Like, it's bad enough that you had wrestlers like Edge go through that, and you had people like Saraya go through that, and you had various other wrestlers like Mark Henry and Big Show and Chris Jericho go through that. Anytime somebody has been on WWE TV for a decade or more, and then all of a sudden they end up on AEW, that wave of negativity comes in, that bitterness, that, you're a traitor. It's not the same when it's a guy who hasn't been around that much. Like, it wasn't like Aleister Black was a traitor or Andrade was a traitor. Edge specifically was attacked because he was a guy who was in the company for so long. Mark Henry and Big Show, these guys were in the company so long. You would think that they're lifers. And then for them to flip near the end of their careers for a paycheck, people felt salty about that. Now, common sense would just tell you to get over it, WWE is so far ahead, not likely anything these people could do except go in there, help AEW as much as they can, but it's mostly just you collecting a paycheck. And if I was Tony Khan, that would be the second reason why I wouldn't bring him in. The number one would be the Vince McMahon stuff, but number two is, can't he actually add significant value to your product that would justify whatever it is you were willing to pay him? And you're going to pay him a lot. He's not coming in there to be cheap. Whether it's expertise, whether it's to be in the ring, whether it's to be a special guest commentator, special guest ring announcer or whatever. Now, recently, Bret Hart came out and said that he wouldn't do the Owen Hart Cup because he didn't want to ruffle any feathers in WWE. It would be, again, this doubles back to the Shane McMahon situation, that if Shane was to do something with AEW, how would that make Triple H look? Let alone how he feels. How would that make him look? How would Stephanie look? That Shane was like, well, I have no place in WWE. I'm just going to go over to AEW. And they welcome me with open arms. That does a lot of damage to the goodwill of TKO, because, again, people like Shane. So for you to say Shane is in AEW clearly is because nobody wanted him involved in TKO. And that is a negative on TKO. And if you're working for AEW, you don't care about that. But I'm looking at it from the fans' perspective too. So it's certainly something to consider. But if I was Tony Khan, I wouldn't do it. It'd be a huge shock. Oh, that's so great. You got a McMahon working for you. Ha 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 ha. But then a month later, 2 months later, people are going to start asking questions like, you're paying this guy a ton of money to do what exactly? You know, be the on-screen general manager or something. He's going to play like the Eric Bischoff role, which I saw some people thinking that would be the best option, and have him be like the on-screen commissioner, the guy who controls the EVPs. But like, you already brought Christopher Daniels in for that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you could do that could be fun, but does it have longevity to it? And I think that's really the question here. So while I like the idea, you know, the speculation of it, the fan in me is saying that it's not going to happen. It'd be huge if it did, but it'd probably be a huge mistake if it did too. Because if you were to do that, it's going to bring a lot of attention to AEW. It's going to connect AEW with the Vince McMahon stuff. And it's also, if it goes sour, probably going to be the final nail in the coffin for AEW. Because then people are going to say this thing is unsalvageable. You know, Cody left. Punk got fired. Now Shane McMahon tried to come in and fix this thing and it fell apart. Okay, this place is done. Like, you're finally starting to recover from the CM Punk disaster. Why go and do this all over again? It just doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't make sense. Okay. That took way longer than I thought it was, but I was actually measuring my thoughts. Okie dokie. Sammy Guevara. He returned recently for Ring of Honor. Apparently he requested to go to Ring of Honor because he didn't want to work with Jericho again, and I think that was the idea that Tony Khan pitched to him. Sammy Guevara, boy, he's an utter failure. You know what I mean? What a piece of garbage that Sammy Guevara is. I don't care that he's in Ring of Honor. Tony Khan recently says that he's considering rebranding Ring of Honor as AEW Ring of Honor, similar to WWE's NXT. And he doesn't think that he says, I think it's not sacrilegious to do that. To the Ring of Honor fans, it is. But this is what he bought it for. Everybody saw that he bought it to make it a subsidiary to AEW. Why he's been pussyfooting around with it instead of just doing it is the question I think that I'm asking. Everybody knew that it's not going to run as a separate but equal promotion. It's going to be a subsidiary. They recently just had a pay-per-view. What was it, Saturday? I saw zero promotion for it. Mark Briscoe is on that TV every week. Nobody mentioned that there being an ROH pay-per-view. It was never mentioned. Not once. Not once. So, if Tony Khan decides to rebrand Ring of Honor to AEW ROH, I would imagine he did that with the intention of packaging Ring of Honor with the rest of AEW as part of the Warner Bros. Discovery deal. I think that's the only reason he would do it. Otherwise, he would basically just leave it alone. But if he was to basically pitch it as our version of NXT, and we want to give it, let's say, the Friday night time slot, then maybe Warner Brothers will bite for it. Maybe they won't. Maybe it will incentivize him to do something with it, which is why, Sammy Guevara being sent there. You could say, hey, we're going to start sending guys to Ring of Honor. Maybe some of these guys who were on Collision, and maybe that's going to be their own roster. And then we're going to have a Ring of Honor roster. And maybe there's going to be some crossover, but not much. Right now, it's not a lot. It's basically just Mark Briscoe. Even though we hear so much about Athena and her epic world title run, she hasn't been on television but like 3 times throughout this entire 600 days or something like that. And usually if you're the champion that long, it's because they don't have anybody else. And that's typically what's going on in Ring of Honor, is they have her being champion that long because they don't have anybody else to put the belt on. So it's because it's not like she's drawing any money. That's the only other option, is that you're drawing tons of money. That's why you would keep the belt on somebody. But she's not drawing any money. It's just that she doesn't have any competition. There's nobody else for you to put the belt on. So, since you're not really promoting the company as it is, maybe you should start there. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but start promoting the company. You would think putting somebody like Sammy Guevara on the show would mean that you would finally start promoting it, but they didn't. I mean, Sammy Guevara made a huge return for Ring of Honor. It wasn't promoted on Dynamite at all. They didn't say, hey, Sammy Guevara's made a big comeback on Ring of Honor. Let's watch a clip and then show, when the show might air, for people who might make the mistake of being Sammy Guevara fans. And some people do make that mistake. So, Tony Khan he's trying to soften the blow. He's trying to answer to some of the criticisms of Ring of Honor by basically saying, I want to change it a little bit. And some of the fans are resistant to it. The others are just kind of go with the flow. Hey, do what you want. As long as it's not on Peacock, it's fine. I look at it and saying, just promote the shows, man. Promote it and promote things that people might want to see. The main event of that pay-per-view that just passed that nobody watched because nobody knew it was happening was Mark Briscoe versus Roderick Strong. That was the main event. Mark Briscoe versus Roderick Strong. What? Get out of here. Nobody's paying for that. You have to be the hardest of the hardcore marks to pay for that. But Tony Khan's Ring of Honor it's becoming dangerously close to Vince McMahon's ECW. It's getting dangerously close. It's following the same pattern, You got a couple of guys from the old Ring of Honor that's still floating around down there, but they're mostly used to put over other people, like Dalton Castle before he got hurt. There was a couple of other guys when I was watching Ring of Honor. They was basically being used to put over other people. Mark Briscoe is pretty much a jobber. He lost on this episode of Dynamite we're going to discuss in a second. And a bunch of Lucha Libre guys that they dumped on the program. So it's a mixture of new guys and people who've been there forever. It's almost the exact same formula as WWE ECW. Except for maybe the pay-per-views aren't as bad. Because they had one pay-per-view and it was the shit. December to Dismember. One of the worst pay-per-views of all time. Easily. Top 10, top 15 worst pay-per-views of all time. All right, let's get into this show. Because I don't want to be up all night. MJF. He came out, called Will Ospreay a red coat terrorist. Called himself an American hero. Said he's going to beat him down. Will Ospreay came out there. Said MJF can keep running. He crossed the line talking about his family. Then said nobody acknowledges that title because MJF is a prick. Then started talking about MJF not fitting the criteria of the International Championship because all the previous champions made the title meaningful and MJF doesn't meet that criteria. He wasn't worthy of it. He also said that MJF doesn't represent the American spirit or the American work ethic. MJF called himself an American hero and then summoned Lance Archer to fight Will Ospreay. And I immediately set upon doing literally anything else. Lance Archer I'm not a fan. He's been in AEW 5 years. He's done nothing. They use another one of these guys like Giant Bernard, a.k.a. Matt Bloom. Oh, he was such a big star in Japan. He's a huge star in Japan. Don't you understand? He was a big star in Japan. All the Japanese love him. He comes over here to the United States, doesn't even get golf claps. People look at him and it's like, huh? He's still around. Literally, as soon as I saw him, I was like, he's still here? Tramp stamp man? He's still around? Oh my God. Anyway, Will Ospreay won. After the match, MJF assaulted Will Ospreay. He got chased off by Kyle Fletcher with some really bony ankles. Bony Ankles decided he was going to cut a promo on Don Callis about how Will Ospreay is his best friend and doesn't want to watch him get beat up by MJF. Then he cut a promo on MJF by saying that he dreamed of coming to America as a kid in Australia. And this country gave him a wife, gave him a career, gave him everything. And he wants to punch MJF in the mouth again. MJF, of course, refused to fight him, called him a wannabe Will Ospreay, but then said that he'll give him a championship match next week. Okie dokie. Okay, fine. It's just a warm-up match. Kyle Fletcher, he blows, but it's a TV match, so who cares? At least they're trying to put some effort into it. My thing is, why is Don Callis okay with that? And it's not a title match either. So maybe Don Callis should try to talk him into making it a championship match. Who cares, really? And what's going to happen when Kyle Fletcher loses? When did Kyle Fletcher turn babyface? Is this his babyface turn? I'm asking too many questions. There was a vignette for Swerve Strickland highlighting his championship run. Very well done. Chris Jericho got a cake from his goons. It was stupid, pointless. Chris Statlander defeated Willow Nightingale by punching her with a chain. So Chris Statlander will now get a championship match for the CMLL Women's World title. After the match, Chris Statlander set upon Willow Nightingale with a steel chair. And then a bunch of twink security guards showed up. And because Chris Statlander is a big girl, she beat up all the twink security guards. I was like, well, this is a new thing now. We got Britt Baker beating up small male security guards, and now Chris Statlander beating them up. It's a tough time being a small man on an AEW roster, even though all of the men are small. Bryan Danielson cut up a great promo, set up and angled as championship versus career. Danielson claims that his contract with AEW ends tomorrow, but he's still going to be at All In. And he's going to give 100%, but he intends to keep his promise to his family that this contract would be his last. I don't understand how he continues to say this contract is over, and yet he still has matches on this contract. How could that be? If the contract is up, then it's up. How is he? So he's wrestling without a contract? Is that what we're being told? Anyway, he says he's going to give 100%. Swerve came out there and said he respected Bryan Danielson, but then said that the AEW World Championship is not a Lifetime Achievement Award and that he's the most dangerous man in AEW. And when he gets done, Bryan Danielson may not walk again. Danielson said he promised to retire, but if he doesn't win the AEW World title, he will never wrestle again. Wanted the match to be title versus career, to which Swerve agreed. Now, this is where commentary actually did do the smart thing. And they actually reminded me, because I wasn't paying attention, that Bryan Danielson always qualified that the final contract meant that he would not be a full-time wrestler. Never said that he wouldn't work part-time, but he would stop being a full-time wrestler. And now Danielson is going on record and saying, if I lose to Swerve, I'm done. There will be no more matches. So basically, he's promising a full retirement. So I nodded, but when I first heard this, and I'm not talking about, the distinction between part-time and full-time. When I first heard title versus career, I said, those tickets must be sagging. That's the first thing that came to my mind, is tickets must not be doing well. I heard they had like 40,000. That's the estimate. I would imagine if they put in Danielson's career on the line, it's probably lower than that. So, and they wanted to try to fill that building as much as possible for the idea of Danielson's final match. But they're not billing it as Danielson's final match. They're billing it as title versus career. Now, most people seem to believe that this is a guarantee that Danielson is going to win this match. He put his career on the line. Clearly, he's going to win. I don't think so. Danielson keeps mentioning that the doctors don't want him to wrestle anymore. His family doesn't want him to wrestle anymore. And I think he's going to listen to them. I have a feeling he's going to lose at All In and retire and call it a day and not wrestle anymore. And I think if I would have had to run a guess, is that you probably won't be able to pass a physical for much longer. They probably, was smudging the records, but Danielson had a lot of difficulties passing physicals in WWE. And that's why he couldn't get work for a long time. They wouldn't let him wrestle. And then they finally did let him wrestle and he left. But I would imagine that eventually, like the head issues and neck issues, those things have not gone away. He's been able to mitigate them, but they haven't completely gone away. So I would imagine that those things are still an issue, and maybe he shouldn't be wrestling anymore. Would I be surprised if he won the title? No. Would I be surprised if he won the title and then retired anyway? No. But something tells me that Danielson's going to, because he doesn't want to be AEW World Champion, we know that he's probably going to go out there and fall on his sword. He's going to lose to Swerve. Swerve's going to get the big boost of being the guy who retired Bryan Danielson. And they will perhaps, with this gambit, save All In ticket sales from going from a 3/4 empty building to maybe a quarter empty building. So Danielson was very frustrated after being confronted by Swerve Strickland backstage. Jeff Jarrett, the only person with muscles on his roster, was talking about how excited he was to see Danielson going All In. And Danielson challenged Jeff Jarrett to a match next week. And I got to tell you, I am eerily surprised at how excited I am for that match. I never thought I would be. But Jarrett versus Danielson sounds fucking fun. That sounds fun. Inspired booking by young Tony Khan. What was not inspired booking was, what is this? Roderick Strong, Roosh, and the Beast Mortos defeating Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, and Tomohiro Ishii. I don't want to see any of these people. Look, I like Roosh and I like Taurus. Well, Mortos. I don't know. The Mortos fan base is like, he was in TNA all this time, losing 100 matches in a row, which is true. This is the one time I'm 100% on their side. The way TNA booked Taurus and Laredo Kid, they should be arrested. Scott D'Amore should be arrested for the way he booked Taurus and Laredo Kid. And then it didn't change when Scott D'Amore left. So, yes. And look at what they're doing with Joe Hendry. TNA can get talent, and then they treat them like garbage. But Beast Mortos, a.k.a. Taurus, he won this match. So I'm guessing they're going to have him wrestle Mark Briscoe in the future. Who cares? The Acclaimed, they want to fight FTR for some odd reason because, well, the odd reason is that Max Caster is offended that they don't take him seriously as a wrestler. I don't take him seriously as a wrestler either, and I also don't want to wrestle Max Caster, and I also don't want to see him. Mariah May cut a great promo. She talked about loving Toni Storm, then slicing her open and wearing her skin. She loves Tony because Tony gave her everything, but Tony was the one who taught her that this business will eat you alive, and she said, well, I guess it was just my turn to eat. This is a great promo because it's creepy, but it's not spooky. She sounds like a serial killer. Like, she literally sounds like Buffalo Bill. But she's a beautiful girl. Wearing regular clothes. There's no black makeup or anything goofy like that. But she just sounds psychotic. And I love that. Then you juxtapose that with Toni Storm, who's having an absolute meltdown. She looks like a murder clown. Like, everything that was about her that was timeless is gone. She's wearing like a black suit with like drawn on eyebrows. Her hair is like really slicked back. She's stabbing herself in the head with a shoe, saying that she loves Mariah May too, and it's gonna be the greatest romance of all time or whatever at All In. I'm like, okay, they've been doing a great job with this storyline. Tony cracking up is probably for the best. It's good work. But I miss timeless Tony, if you ask me. You have to show that Tony has some kind of reaction to being betrayed. But, falling off the wagon this far, maybe a week or two. I think it's only been about 2 or 3 weeks. But I would like for her to get back to who she is eventually. I also don't understand what the glamour is for Mariah May. I think that, for starters, the glamour. Why not the glamorous? Like, that's appropriate English, but I don't know. Moving on. Camille defeated Brittany Jade. Oh, brother. Camille did a Rough Rider, Zack Ryder's move, a leg lariat, and basically just sat on the girl's head. Ho, ho, ho. Camille was okay. She won the match in short order. She's going to be the Wardlow of the women's division. She's going to be the Wardlow of the women's division, my God. Mercedes Moné got on the microphone, and the world cringed because they were like, what is about to come out of this girl's face hole? And she talked about this being the Moné Corporation. Ooh. The Moné Corporation. She says Britt Baker has been victimizing her, and she tried to turn the other cheek, but Britt Baker has been obsessed. But she says, thankfully, due to her stunt at Comic-Con, Britt Baker has been suspended by her EVPs, but she also has a brick wall, that Britt Baker cannot climb. Then she says she doesn't care if Britt Baker built this house because it's her house now, and she's going to turn it into a mansion. And that's facing her is the biggest match of Britt Baker's career. This girl cannot talk. She is not good at promos, man. She's not a good communicator. It's been people blame the writing staff, and I think a lot of people still do. But she sounds congested. She sounds like she's speaking from her sinuses. It's so weird. It's not believable. Jonathan Coachman. I'm just going to move on because I said I don't know what more to say. Jonathan Coachman again criticized her. He was on the podcast. He was on a podcast. I forget who it was. Reffing with Brian Hebner and Jimmy Corderas, and he talked about Mercedes Moné's promos. He says, I don't really want to insult her too much, but AEW people already hate me anyway. She said, when I'm on the movie sets, when I want the private jet, Tony lets me use it whenever I want. And then Coach says, well, no wonder she didn't last in WWE. Why would she ever get to use a private jet? Which is, I don't believe to be true, but if he's that stupid, then that's on Tony Khan. I don't see anything wrong with letting her use the private jet. You've already paid for it. I mean, you already got it. It's not like you went and bought her a private jet. She's using your private jet. At least that's my reading of what she said and what she meant about the private jet. I don't think he went out and bought her a private jet. That would be stupid. But if she's using Tony's private jet, then what's the big deal? Brock used to use Vince's private jet all the time. Now I get it. She's no Brock Lesnar. She doesn't mean that much to AEW. I'm just using him as an example. Again, for the low IQ people who are going to hear this and then immediately, Mercedes Moné, she ain't no Brock Lesnar in my comment section. Let me tell you again, it's just an example. All right. Sometimes people let folks that are important use their private vehicles, private residences, etc., etc. All right. That's not too out of the ordinary. Then he continues by saying, but to say she's the biggest signing they've ever had, and she's the best diva or whatever, she's terrible on the microphone. It takes 2 seconds to listen to her cut a promo, and the other day, Britt Baker just ran circles around her in that promo segment when Britt came back. Looked amazing, by the way. That's what a star looks like. You got to be able to back it up with the arrogance, and Mercedes has never been able to do that in WWE. I don't know why, Tony Khan, but hey, she made all the money, but now she's getting exposed because her microphone segments every week, and she's not good. And that's why the crowd the other day told her to shut up. The crowd knows you got to be able to talk and work, and she can't talk. And that's why sometimes when she comes on, I turn it off. That's amazing. That is extremely amazing. Very disrespectful from the coach. Extremely disrespectful from coach. But what can you do? You know, she's not a good promo. This is just facts. None of her promos have hit. I'm a fan. I really am. Again, I've always said that I think that her ego is a little much, but I've always liked the package that came with Mercedes. You know, she has an attitude, which is good. She stands out, which is good. She can work, which is good. She had a character, you know, and the character made her unique. She had a unique look and a unique presentation. But then she went and started doing her own thing. And it's basically, you know, Costco Sasha Banks. You know, it's like if you'd have went and ordered Sasha Banks off Temu, you would get CEO Mercedes Moné. It's pretty much the same damn gimmick. It's just that her promos are worse. She's wrestling less. And her ego is on 15 out of 10, you know? And I think part of being on The Mandalorian has done that. I think she was better when she felt like she had something to prove. And she seems to be one of those people that when she was motivated and wanting something, you know, really pushing to be taken seriously in the company, she was great. You know, when it was time to, she had hit a ceiling and she really couldn't get through and she wanted to be a main event talent, she improved pretty much at every level. And then I keep saying this, when she came back in, I think, 2021 from her sabbatical, it was over. It was like she had gotten most of what she wanted. There was really only one thing left, which is main event WrestleMania. And then once she got that, it was over. She kind of decided, I'm the biggest wrestling star in the world, male or female. We went through her actually saying that she wanted the same amount of TV time as Roman Reigns and all this kind of stuff. And she was just basically being incredibly delusional and egotistical. And at that point, once you think you're the best, once you think you're the greatest of all time, and you legitimately believe it, it's not just a gimmick. Once you start to legitimately believe your own hype, you stop improving. She's too young to have this mentality. She's only like in her early 30s. To believe that you're the greatest of all time already, legitimately, that you can not focus on your career and do multiple things. I'm going to do a rap album. I'm going to do a song. I'm going to do all this kind of stuff, do a movie and all this kind of shit. It's like, well, you're taken away from the wrestling part to do all this other stuff, and you're not really solidified outside of the WWE yet. It'd have been one thing if she was, but that success has not quite translated from WWE to New Japan to AEW. It hasn't quite done that yet. And maybe it will one day, and I'll be proven wrong. But for right now, as we speak, on August 1st, 2024, her segments don't pop. You know, people don't even chant for her. She barely gets a reaction as it is. It's almost as if people don't care about her. And she legitimately believes she's the greatest women's wrestler of all time. She's got these gurus for agents. Like, I don't know why her agent is also like her spiritual leader. You know, she's got magic rocks, which, you know, was probably one of the funniest things. Go watch the Wrestling Soup talk about the magic crystals with Sasha Banks. I can't believe I missed that. It's been too far back for me to go back and find it. But heavens to Betsy, she's into all this spiritual mumbo jumbo. The guy who's her agent, you know, again, I called him a cult leader because he talks like one. And when it's obvious when you listen to her that there are holes in her game that have not been filled. And it's almost at the point where she doesn't feel like she needs to improve it. You would think if she wants to be an actress, she would take some acting classes. That you would think one of the first things you would do if you want to be an actress is you would learn how to speak in public. You know, she's still not really good at that. She's not really good at projecting her voice. Even if you wanted to do something as simple as voiceover work, if she's scripted, which some people still like, oh, it's the scripts. Okay, whatever. If she's scripted, her performance of the scripts is still bad. And that's what actresses do. They perform the scripts. Her acting is terrible. Her voice is not good. She sounds nasally. She sounds fake. It doesn't come across as being realistic. And the criticisms only pour in when you start calling yourself the best of all time, the greatest of all time, and all this kind of stuff. And wanting private jets and time off to do movies and all this shit. Then that's when people start criticizing you. You know? I don't think the criticism would be as harsh if she was humble. You know? I don't think the criticism would be as harsh. Look at somebody like Athena. You know? People talk a lot about how great she was. She talked herself up a little bit, but they don't criticize. She can't talk either. And they don't criticize her that much, you know, for falling off and not being able to really get over. But Mercedes is getting it a lot because the ego is there, but the performance and the production is not. All right, the main event of the show was Darby Allin beating Hangman Page. This match was no disqualification and no countout, which I didn't know. Darby Allin climbed the tunnel and jumped off of it onto Hangman. He won the match with a roll-up after, of course, the typical Darby Allin match where he gets hit with an Acme anvil, you know, and then a cigar blows up in the heel's face and Darby Allin wins. Bulletproof midgets, you know how that works. So Darby Allin apparently also has a championship match at Grand Slam. So he's got a title match against Jack Perry at All In, but he's also got a world championship match at Grand Slam. I don't understand the booking of that. So I don't understand why you would book him to have 2 championship matches 2 months into the future, because All In is at the end of this month and Grand Slam is the end of next month. Why would you do that? I don't know. I also heard some. I don't care either, and it is what it is. I will say this: Darby Allin is probably the one guy, but him and MJF, that is actually delivering in terms of being a stalwart for your company, being your version of Jeff Hardy. He is everything that AEW wanted him to be. He's an alternative, undersized babyface. Takes a tremendous amount of punishment and comes back. And that gets people into it. As much as I have criticized them, even I say the Darby Allin formula works. You know, it doesn't work for everybody, but it works for him. And he's over. He's still over. He's one of the few people who are still over 5 years on top of this company. Jericho's still struggling to get over. But Darby Allin, pretty much the same. You know? I just don't know why you would book him for 2 championship matches 2 months in a row. I just don't know why you would do that. Also, one final thing before we wrap this up. There was some talk from Brian Alvarez about Daniel Garcia not coming back. That apparently his contract is up and they killed him to write him off TV just in case he won't come back. I want to try to find those exact words because that doesn't make sense to me. Why would Daniel Garcia not come back? You know, what would be the plan for him to not come back? What is he going to do? Certainly you don't mean he's going to like go to NXT or something like that. Like, why in the world would you do that? So here's the words from Brian Alvarez. It says, when they did that, when AEW did that angle, they were aware that Daniel Garcia may not be back. So the angle was done in case he doesn't come back. If he does come back, then they have a storyline feud with MJF. I know he had been thinking about it, or he had told people he had been thinking about it, what he was going to do. I don't think it's 100% that he's coming back. I will say that, but I don't think that he's re-signed or decided to leave yet. Well, you know he doesn't have to leave to have a match with MJF. If his contract is still operational, he could have just had the match with MJF at any one of these shows that just occurred and got beat or murdered, and then if he was not going to come back, that was it. Like, you're going to dangle this MJF feud over his head, and then what happens if he bite that apple? What about after that? That's going to be my question, because you're going to sign him for like 3 or 4 years, and then what? You're going to feud with MJF, and it's going to be great, and okay, then what? You might be the international champion, okay, and then what after that? Who are you going to feud with after that? Those would be the questions I would ask, but I don't think he's leaving. Tony Khan and AEW have invested in this guy. It doesn't seem to me like he would fit in NXT. He's a very, very wrestler guy. I know that he got over on a dance, but it's supposed to be ironic. It's supposed to be a joke. It's supposed to be almost a parody of what WWE does with guys. And again, when the gimmick was introduced, it was introduced in a gimmick where Jericho was mocking WWE. So I don't think there's any fear of Daniel Garcia leaving. So it seems to me that, Brian Alvarez is just carrying water for Tony Khan and trying to make this thing more interesting than it really is. But maybe you don't see Daniel Garcia again. Maybe he pops back up on Ring of Honor like Sammy Guevara did. Either way, I don't really care. Let me know what you guys think of Dynamite and all the stories within here in the comment section below. And I will talk to you guys later. Peace out.